It's my honor and a privilege to introduce you to John Cena!
Right.
Bologna, fudge, and mustard! My life is being ruined by the internet! I haven't flipped out this bad since my mom canceled my subscription to Warcraft.
Right.
Oh my God! No! You gotta be kidding me! John Cena had both men up.
Right.
Nobody's granted more make-a-wishes than you. I think when you experience something like the reward of a make-a-wish, if you're not moved, I don't know if you have a beating heart.
Right.
Costumes, they are so important. Maybe the most important thing there is.
Right.
Batman has a coterie of supervillains.
So what?
You said you were a superhero like Batman. So maybe you're not a superhero after all.
Right.
Why am I here? Tonight, I officially announce my retirement from the WWE.
Right.
You know, if I were you, last thing I'd want to do is get my attention. You know what I mean?
It's all over. In his final year as a sports entertainer, John Cena, Mr. Hustle, Loyalty, Respect, Mr. Never Give Up, Mr. Rise Above Hate, became a hater, disrespected the WWE, and, in his final match, on a Saturday night's main event, of all things, gave up. Super Cena was an eye-roller for many years, for many fans, namely grown men who wanted something a little edgier than a gigantic 8-year-old cracking juvenile jokes and hitting the 5 moves of doom every week. From the summer of 2005 right up until he pumped the brakes on choke-holding the world title around 2015 time, John Cena dominated the main event scene every time he showed up. The king of merchandise moving, popular with the family crowds, but what was it that made John Cena so commercially appealing and so beloved among younger demographics whilst being so vilified by hardcore smarks and diehards? Well, the answer lies in his original main event push. 2004. Randy Orton, the prodigal son, the chosen one many believed would ascend to new heights in the WWE, had fallen off. Unfortunately for Randy Orton, he was tall, he was handsome, he was charismatic, and he was naturally gifted between the ropes, and damn it! That just wasn't going to fly on Triple H's watch. Evolution, a faction designed, seemingly, to eventually get Orton over as a babyface hero who would topple his mentor, The Lame, and begin a new generation of the WWE. That all sounds quite good, but oh no! Randy Orton had the audacity to enjoy goofing around with his friends backstage, and maybe allegedly crapping in a woman's handbag or two. So The Lame, ooh, damn this man, and his proportionate facial features and normally sized nose. Not on my watch, damn it! That was Triple H's view on things, not mine. Anyways, 1 month after dropping the Intercontinental Championship to mid-card babyface Edge, it was a very long time ago, Randy Orton made a Superman comeback. 1 month on to bag the world title, the secondary one, against, you know. Hey, you know what, this is a free speech zone. We can say it here. Against Chris Orton, at 24, was the youngest world champ in WWE history, and it all went downhill from there. Orton's painfully brief run revolved around getting punked out and embarrassed by his Evolution pals, as an incensed Triple Nose set up winning the belt yet again, despite not drawing at all as the top dog in 2003 or 2004 on the red brand, and truncating the potential of far more popular acts such as Goldberg, Kane, Rob Van Dam, and Chris Jericho. And wouldn't you know, it was time for the Nose to sniff out another world title run. A measly month after winning the gold as a heel prodigy, Orton was a babyface choke artist on his way to a mid-card demotion for his shenanigans behind the scenes. He couldn't be trusted, apparently, as if the best talents over the years have always been well-behaved saints outside of the ring. And hey, look, we've all got to go sometime. Maybe that handbag was just the nearest option beyond the floor. He wasn't in India. Orton can't just squat and dump on any old pavement, okay? Be reasonable. Anyways, with Orton now firmly in a number 2 spot, someone else had to fill the role of next big thing in the wake of Brock Lesnar's 2004 departure. Enter John Cena. A more naturally charismatic showman and colourful character guy than Orton, who, by all accounts, was vastly better behaved and disciplined behind the scenes. So as 2005 rolled in, and Batista lucked into the babyface spot on Raw, getting remarkably over in a way Orton could not in that role, John Cena, the white boy rapper. Vanilla Ice in wrestling form, even if the gimmick was clearly inspired by the runaway popularity of Eminem at the time. Yeah, that guy got the push on SmackDown. Rapper Cena was a fan favorite, cracking goofy gay jokes and pop cultural references at his foes, having fun, talking tough. But as his feud with then-champion JBL raged on, it became apparent who John Cena's real influences in wrestling were. At WrestleMania 21, Cena played underdog in their match, working from underneath in a pitifully dull WWE Championship bout, built around the Doctor of Thugonomics making a comeback in the closing stretch against his rest-holds-loving opponent. While on that night it did not land, it was obvious who Cena was trying to emulate. Rewind 20 years, and the Hulkster, the man who slew Gorka and ploughed Bubba the Love Sponge's looser-than-a-windsock wife, had used this exact match formula to monumentally successful effect. Time and again, throughout the cartoon era, the heels would put the brakes on Hogan, grounding him and handing him a beating, leading to the Hulk-up, as the big man forgot what selling was. Spazzed out as his opponents watched on uncomfortably for a spell, and then, despite constantly talking about the insane size of his jacked arms, hit them with a big boot and a leg drop for the win. Cena, here and for the rest of 2005, time and again was clearly looking to emulate this energy. The absurdly muscle-bound hero who was somehow, still an underdog, fighting the good fight from underneath, showing grit.
I have grit.
And then hitting the same series of signature comeback moves en route to victory every damn time. Of course, in 1989 that cartoony style was in full swing and Hulkamaniacs were a dime a dozen. For the younger viewers, he was a superhero. To the older viewers, they got a goofy thrill out of watching something so completely ridiculous. That was then, though. This is now. Oh, well, that was then. This is 20 years ago. By the time John Cena was pulling this stunt, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels had blown the lid off of what WWE fans could expect in the ring, and Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock had changed the game, ushering in the age of the cool, take-no-prisoners anti-hero, making the whole cartoon good guy hero shtick look lame and antiquated. Cena, working this 80s-style babyface psychology in front of an aging crowd, still longing for the rattlesnake, soon began getting under the skin of the grown-ass man demographic that will always dominate the wrestling fandom more than any other. And it didn't help that hardcore fan favorites like Chris Jericho and Kurt Angle were made to look so ridiculous in bids to get Cena even more over at the time. When he wasn't hulking up, he was smiling, joking, jumping around, showboating. A ball of gym bro energy. Like pre-knee injury, Surfer Sting, and once again, awesome babyface in his day. But Sting's surfer days were in the age of the wrestling superhero. By 1996, he was moving into his own tortured soul crow phase, rolling with the times and finding new life with the demands of an increasingly unruly, bloodthirsty audience. Once again, John Cena's ring work, his character work, while not necessarily bad by any stretch, was simply out of time. Like Steve Rogers at a gaming convention, it was all wrong, it was out of touch. And of course it didn't matter one bit for the younger crowd who still appreciated the thrills of watching Superman step in and do things the right way. A divide was forming, and well, why listen to some punsy viewer explain it when we can watch a real star tell it how it is?
It's the same process every single night, in every arena around the world. You hear something, John, that eats away at your very soul, eats away at your very core. You hear this in every arena around the world. Let's go, Cena! Cena sucks!
John Cena, over the next 10 years, came to represent a growing divide between Vince McMahon and the fans who'd lapped up his product for decades. A cultural schism within professional wrestling, where Vince McMahon sought a simple, family-friendly product built around moments and clear-cut babyface and heel characters that were easy to market. Fans wanted work rate, blood, guts, and all that good stuff. Good if it were done by cool wrestlers and not vanilla midgets. I mean, come on, who in their right mind could seriously think Davey Richards could front a major show? Michael Elgin? Eddie Edwards? Any of these Ring of Honor guys back then. Sure, their matches were cool and athletically impressive, but they were all tragically born without personalities, the Briscoe brothers and Adam Cole being the sole exceptions of guys back then. And without hitting the Big Six. The Big Six. The one all men sweat about. And I know which one you're thinking, so take your dirty mind out of the gutter, alright? We're talking about tape measures, used for height. And let me just assure you, with all of that in mind, 6 is just average, buddy. Don't let your imaginary girlfriend fool you. Now anyways, when Cena feuded with hardcore fan and smart favourites like CM Punk or Daniel Bryan or AJ Styles, this divide was all part of the show. When he threw down with goofy heels tailored specifically to him, like The Miz, Sheamus, the Nexus guys, etc., etc., it was an anchor on the atmosphere of the show as half the crowd bought tickets, watched every week, and still somehow would rather be anywhere but there. But for less jaded, less cynical fans, John Cena's emphasis on a simpler time of babyface warriors and Saturday morning cartoons brought to life was must-see TV, making that dreaded transition to soft, sensitive, PG content that much easier for the top brass, who were desperate to secure some big-time toy deals and also clean up the promotion's reputation in the wake of, Hey, you know what? No, we can say it. I'm being silly. In the wake of In the years after making the big transition to Hollywood, however, the general fan reception to John Cena began to change, updating his persona to be more of a lovable, good-natured veteran and less of an indestructible super champ, and actually doing more than one singles job a year. Cena was treated as a fun nostalgia act by audiences, getting far more universal pops and positive reactions for his appearances than he ever did at his peak. And in 2025, after years of random appearances and mini-feuds, Big Match John began the last haul, his retirement tour. And this is where the wheels officially fall off. The train goes off the rails, the plane gets confused and hits a building on its way home. The last time is now. Actually, by the time this is released, the last time is very much then. John Cena is a well-known mainstream celebrity now. There is plenty of room for general public interest with him being on these shows. And, as we discovered in more recent time, despite his age, schedule, and wear and tear, Vince McMahon's favourite, non-biological son, was willing to work a near full-time schedule for the closing stretch of his time in the squared circle.
I want to do 200 dates. I think I can manage that. That face is what the... what I got from when I pitched my idea to WWE. I wanted to do 200 dates.
Instead, mysteriously, Cena is informed he won't actually be needed that much, and his schedule is condensed and scattered into a measly fraction of what he was prepared to give to the company. Cena, who'd been doing nothing but jobs for years by this point, was seemingly set for a feel-good comeback run. Instead, the Royal Rumble had other, unfortunate, different ideas. We live in the brain rot era, I'm sure you've noticed, where everyone must be as stupid and as low attention span as possible, you see? The TikTok generation, the grain brain era. Room for critical thinking and focus? No thanks. A world of functional idiots is what the powers that be need. Obedient simpletons alternating between doom-scrolling and just about managing to fill the basic requirements of their utterly pointless jobs. No questions, no engagement in reality. All while we head to an early grave of eating bugs, owning nothing, and rotting away as something ultimately less than human. And this push is everywhere, even in something as silly and as light as professional wrestling. Look no further than Jey Uso, an out-of-shape alcoholic nepo baby who just says, "Yeet." A simple non-word all the sheeple in the stands can just about say with him. This man has no depth of character. He used to, in the bloodline, but now he's just a spazzy entrance and a Vine meme from 10 years ago. Forgetting all of his words in important match-building promos and having to cut them short to the end. 4 letters, 1 word. Yeet. His matches are frankly subpar from a viewer's perspective, his mic work often nonsensical, and the stench of a career in the tag division and mid-card hangs off him like a rusty anchor. And yet, when it comes down to him and a surefire Hall of Famer superstar who dominated the industry for over a decade, Triple Nose throws a curveball into the mix, having Uso outwit and outmaneuver Cena, making him look like a fool and a choke artist in his final Royal Rumble. It's a disappointing start, with Cena not even at least getting to put a promising new star or actual current main event talent over in the Rumble. But for every dark cloud, some might say, there is a silver lining. This setback planted the seeds for one of the few genuinely shocking moments in professional wrestling this decade. The Elimination Chamber is here. And for the first time in 12 years, John Cena and CM Punk are going to war. I know they had their little moment at the Rumble, but this felt more personal at the Chamber. It was more one-on-one. It was more exciting for people who liked their feud from back in the day. They're the final 2. The heat in the building, in fairness, is huge. You can tell the audience are into this, and you can tell Cena and Punk are having fun. 2 old rivals, old pals even, getting to do their thing again after all this time. And while both men are a little arthritic these days, the chemistry is still there, and it's all well and good, it's entertaining, until Zest, Fruity Rollins, interferes as yet another chapter in his never-ending feud with CM Punk. Costing the straight-edge tomato can the bout. Cena, technically, did the dishonourable thing here. It's not his fault, in kayfabe, that Rollins chose to interfere after being eliminated. But it is eyebrow-raising to see such a man of honour stoop to immediately capitalising on such shenanigans. Especially against someone he genuinely respects in kayfabe like Punk. The hint of what's to come is there, as we move into Cody Rhodes deciding whether or not to give up his rear end to the filthy machinations of the final ditty. The Rock, Samoan Satan, out here looking for souls, lifting the veil on how these demonic celebrities ascend to the highest levels of fame and fortune behind the scenes, selling their souls and poop holes for a shot at the title, the big leagues, living free in their mansions, strolling on their red carpets, getting head in the back of the club while the rest of us schlub for 8 to 10 hours a day, gassing up second-hand cars we can barely trust to work properly, stuck with partners we don't love. Oh, damn it! Damn it, no! Anyways, Cody Rhodes ain't having it. Hey, Walk, go fix yourself, he proudly roars. like a slightly learning-impaired child actor, finally getting the line right. And then it happens. Shock, horror, gasp! The Rock has another man's gazumpity to his name. He's got Big Match John. And it is on like chicken and corn. The Rock is the bubba to Cena's done. If you know, you know. He activates the Doctor of Thugonomics like Sergeant Barnes at a Hydra base, and Cena, no more Mr. Nice Guy, after all of these years of being a hero to the youngsters, of being good guy goofball, he hands Cody Rhodes a savage beating with the help of the Rock. Cool. A Cena and Rock alliance. I can't wait to see those two cutting a heel promo together, explaining how this all came about. And well, actually, it's not just them, it's Travis Scott is also there for some reason. He was there. But we'll get to him later. Needless to say, such a generational heel turn, a career babyface, a living legend of the business, succumbing to evil in the twilight of his career, falling under the hellish influence of a star even bigger than himself, carried huge weight for wrestling fans. The road to WrestleMania had suddenly, finally become must-see TV. And what followed was a Bob Backlund in '94 style heel shtick, as a frustrated and oddly sensitive Cena let loose on the fans for disrespecting him over the years, still dressed like a big 8-year-old. Refusing to change with the times or for the people. And while the man himself did a stellar job in bringing the material to life, hamming it up to 11 as he went straight for the cheap heat, nothing else here made sense or flowed. The Rock was nowhere to be seen, and Cena, notorious for brutalizing his rivals on the microphone, had seemingly been told to clamp down when it came to his WrestleMania opponent. Cody Rhodes was frequently given the authority in their segments together, shutting Cena down and chastising his just plain shameful antics. By WrestleMania, heel Cena, something many fans had longed for since all the way back in 2008 or thereabouts, had already stumbled into caricature territory, still lacking in any full backstory or explanation for his quietly cast-aside alliance with The Rock. Cena was two-dimensional, a cartoon of a miserable has-been, sauntering into one last WrestleMania main event. A bitter, hateful old man raging against his next-gen replacement in Rhodes. The match itself was a crushing disappointment considering its placement as the Night 2 main event of the biggest wrestling event of the year. The pace is plodding, with Cena relying heavily on time-wasting tactics and stunted exchanges to slow the match in a bid to up the heel heat. 10 years prior, a throwaway US title challenge saw babyface Cena thump Stardust in a match that, hilariously, had far better action and pacing than what fans were given here, with a vastly more sizable profile and stakes. An inevitable ref bump had the crowd eagerly awaiting the return of The Rock, hoping that somehow, someway, the star of Flop Adam would actually come back and finish the big angle he'd started in some way. Even something as simple as his new pal John Cena receiving his help to win the big one last time. Instead, that man who may or may not have deliberately caused a grisly stampede of NPCs at Astroworld a few years ago, allegedly, I have no money to be sued, came sauntering out, high as a kite, to remind us all just how small and frail average-sized people look compared to WWE superstars, messing with the American shite-mare right when he had Cena visibly beaten. With the referee pulled out, Rhodes is given the hard shaft, something these Hollywood guys know all about, as Cena takes advantage of his pint-sized rapper buddy's interference to sock Rhodes one right in the crown jewels, followed up by a belt shot for the cheap, tainted win. The final stretch of the match, while kind of idiotic, did get across the key story of Cena losing sight of himself, highlighting his slump into moral bankruptcy and shamelessness in his obsessive quest to break Ric Flair's long, untouched record. He's no longer unstoppable. Rhodes largely had him on the ropes, and the unseen 17 took advantage of every last rule break he could to steal the gold. He's a scumbag. As always, Rhodes does his sad sit-down at WrestleMania. 3 events in a row with this guy, this time sitting on the ramp, mirroring Cena doing the exact same thing after his WrestleMania 28 loss to The Rock. History repeats itself, a custom of Triple Nose's samey, uninspired, lazy booking, with the prior, more famous generation once again eking out a somewhat surprising win over the current generation's most relied-upon leading star. I suppose Rhodes will pick up a win over fellow African-American star Trick Williams in a few years. To continue this cycle, the message of WrestleMania 41's match is clear. WWE Champion John Cena can no longer hang fairly with the top dogs. Super Cena is gone, good guy John is buried, and this is all that remains, a bitter husk of a once great wrestler. Riding high on ego and delusion from a life in a bigger, brighter medium beyond the squared circle. Bitterness becomes a key theme in the Cena story next, even more so than with Rhodes, as career-long rival Randy Orton, now a mellow, lovable babyface and a far cry removed from the head-punting psychopath of their more famous feuds from 2007 and 2009, steps on in to challenge his nemesis one last time. John Cena is sterile in real life, by the way. You don't have to go far to find this information. He made his decision to get a vasectomy public in one of those Total Divas or Total Bellas shows.
I will give you a child.
But you have that.
I know. I physically can't have kids.
Now, obviously, Nikki Bella never quite got that final ring planted on her finger to be wife number 2 for Vince McMahon's chosen one, his golden boy. But some other lady did, eventually. He does have a wife. Cena and Mrs. Cena Part 2 are childless. It's no one's business, to be clear. No one's business but theirs, really. If it wasn't for the fact Cena brought up his vasectomy in the public eye all those years ago. And then Orton here bringing up that Cena ought to give fatherhood a shot while he still can. He literally can't make the shot required to set up being a father 9 months down the line, but anyways. It's in a funny and oddly touching promo from Orton, providing his character with more nuance and depth than any of the actual booking for him has in years. The Viper, once a menace to society, has found peace and stability through a loving wife and the children they raise together, allowing him to shed the sadistic cruelty of his prime years, and become a more grounded, sportsmanly competitor in recent times. With age comes wisdom, and from RK Bro to now, Orton's transition into being a fun, good-natured, cheeky veteran babyface has allowed him to show newer, more human aspects of his character and work. Where Orton seems oddly real in this interaction with Cena, the champ is the polar opposite, cranking his angry, get-off-my-lawn energy up to 11, and largely coming across as comical in his mock offense over Orton's parenthood jibes. The Shoe is very much on the opposite foot, as evil Orton is now a relaxed man of the people, and Cena is the darkness on the horizon. Their match runs into many of the same problems the Rhodes WrestleMania match did, from a plodding, controlling pace from Cena to a ludicrous run-in towards the end, this time courtesy of R-Truth. These two know each other very well, and they have enough chemistry that the crowd heat remains intact from start to finish, with some neat moments of Cena trying to cheat against the classically dirty Orton, who is largely ready for his shenanigans, having done them all before himself. The end result is never in doubt, and fully vanquishing the man who put him through hell for years adds some dramatic punch to Cena's heel work, as karma catches up to Orton and he gets a taste of the frustrating, tainted defeats he used to hand babyfaces like Cena all the time. But within the semi-interesting themes and ideas swirling around here, we have the same problem WrestleMania had. We have an unwanted guest, an ill-fitting entrant in what is meant to be a world title main event. Travis Scott first, now we get R-Truth, and I want to make very clear, I'm not judging these performers on a certain something they happen to have in common. Alright? This is purely on the content of their characters and the relevance to this story they're in. Oh, no, what have I done? After that Peacemaker video, people are going to think the worst of things. Who do you think I am? Triple Nose when Montez Ford's getting over? No, of course not. This is merely a criticism of the tired format used in back-to-back shows where heel Cena just about survives and cheats his way to victory off the back of a goofball run-in. Goofy because of their personalities, alright? That's all. Goofy because of the story. They could be from anywhere, any ethnic group, any demographic. Damn it! And this criticism belongs here all the same, alright? Right, let's move on. We'll get to the R-Truth feud and controversy a bit later. The path was clear by now. Cena, now evil, more consumed by his own ego, and the dying of the light in his own career, his mortality as a wrestler in full view, must move through his old rivals, all of whom just happen to have completed redemption arcs in recent years.
Ooh, how convenient!
Standing tall now as men of honor against a fallen hero. Enter CM Punk, not literally, good grief. Turn your clocks back to 2011, and John Cena was the ultimate company man, the undisputed face of the WWE, a man who put his body, mind, and soul into sports entertainment 24/7, carrying that tacky spinner belt with pride, and sending a whole generation of potential main event talent straight back to the mid-card where they belonged. CM Punk, meanwhile, was the opposite, a jaded, under-pushed beacon of negativity, burnt out by a promotion that just wouldn't commit to him, no matter how strong his matches were, how dynamic his promos were, how fun his color commentary proved to be.
I have proved to everybody in the world that I am the best on this microphone, in that ring, even at commentary. Nobody can touch me.
Punk, determined, in kayfabe, to humiliate the company and Vince McMahon for shafting him, vowed to take the WWE Championship away from the company, permanently tainting its lineage and scarring the promotion with his hatred in the process. That was then. This is now. Or, well, this is quite recent. Cena wants to be remembered. He wants to seal his legacy with the WWE Championship once and for all, retiring as champion in a sad and self-destructive bid to hurt the fans who'd followed him, cheering or booing, for 20-plus years. Punk, meanwhile, after an eventful run in AEW.
And the fact that I have to sit up here because we have irresponsible people who call themselves EVPs and they spread lies.
Returned to the WWE with a new lease on life. Far from the self-righteous cynic of his first run in the promotion, Punk's persona now was that of the humbled veteran. 2024 had seen Punk go on an unexpected hero's journey of sorts after sustaining a triceps injury, a measly, infuriating 2 or so months into his return. Brutalized and humiliated by Drew McIntyre, a one-armed Punk made it his mission to get revenge, sabotaging the surly Scots' world title dreams again and again. From prompting a Money in the Bank cash-in at WrestleMania to posing as a referee at Clash at the Castle, handing McIntyre some very apt, broken dreams in front of his home nation crowd. The Two's furious game of one-upmanship was the best part of WWE programming in 2024, and McIntyre, if we want to get pretentious with it, came to represent the setbacks and failures of Punk's original WWE run. Time and again McIntyre would troll Punk's career, even including his embarrassing fallout with Colt Cabana, and his scuffle with Jungle Boy among numerous other slip-ups and incidents during his time away from the WWE. McIntyre is an obstacle, a symbol of the past Punk must let go of, to prove he belongs in the here and now. In the ring, Punk loses the first match, squeezes out a difficult win in the rematch, and finally, after taking a bloody beating, puts McIntyre down for good in Hell in a Cell to end the year. Since then, he's been allowed to actually get involved with the rest of the product, including major angles with Zest Rollins, Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman, and, as we see here, a final confrontation with John Cena. By this point, Punk is very much a babyface, fighting the good fight, colliding with the major heels of Raw, and reeling from the betrayal absolutely everyone on Earth, and probably beyond Earth for all we know, saw coming from Paul Heyman at WrestleMania. Punk has had losses, he's had setbacks, but he's still here, still happy to be a cog in the WWE machine, proudly representing the company and appreciating it for what it is in a way he never could in his prime. And it's fallen to him to complete the 180, and now, 14 years later, try and save the WWE from potentially losing their top crown To a crazed, angry, departing Cena, it actually sounds like decent storytelling on paper. It genuinely does. And yet... Punk confirms his plans to challenge Cena, confronting his old rival, the man who called him his equal when no one else would, and letting him have it in a fiery promo. Cena then pulls the ultimate troll move and yanks the kayfabe away to reveal an all-too-real situation. CM Punk and his hang-ups about Saudi Arabia. Many people aren't thrilled about the gradual Saudi conquest of the sports and entertainment worlds, but we're going to stay on topic for this one. Punk, after years of being adamant in his refusal to perform in the land of the sword, begrudgingly accepts Cena's proposal, whatever it takes. Much like the Orton feud, the psychology here is simply an inversion of what has come before, with Cena cranking it up and dropping a pipe bomb on a fallen Punk, who wants to stand up for WWE. And R-Truth is there too, again, but we'll get to him in a bit. Cena has fun shouting out Dolph Ziggler and Zack Ryder, and, like so many fans these days, takes some time to roast Punk's near-endless laundry list of double standards and hypocrisies over the years. In turn, we get Punk cosplaying as Wildlife Cena, and it's around this time, as Punk finishes up the humiliation ritual of begging Saudi Arabia for forgiveness, that the wheels, which are already scarily loose, finish falling off what they started in January. Completely gone, forever, never to be seen again on the John Cena retirement tour. The match is a sloppy mess of poorly handled spots and arthritic aging sequences made worse by a tsunami of shenanigans. From Priscilla, Queen of the Ring himself, Zest Fruity Rollins, and his harem of well-oiled, muscular men. The tease of a Cena babyface turn is briefly there. Does he regret becoming a bitter old menace? Yeah, not quite. Not yet, anyway. And once again, 3 title match main events in a row. Cena walks out as a smug heel champ with a tainted, run-ins and cheating-laden win to his name. And still, any shred of an explanation of his alliance with The Rock and, Travis Scott for some reason, is left blowing in the wind. Finally now, let's wrap up heel Cena. While he was butting heads with old nemeses like the Viper and the Second City Saint, trouble was bubbling elsewhere. R-Truth, who has long played a complete retard for comedic purposes on WWE TV, had himself an ordeal. Despite being well into his 50s, Truth is normally portrayed as a hero worshipper of John Cena, and cites him as a childhood role model and hero for comedic purposes. Ha 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 ha. So, of course, glum, miserable Cena has to be an absolute jerk to R-Truth. The Truth steps in to save him from the punt during that match with Randy Orton, and Cena's response, his thanks, is to put this poor simpleton through a table after the show. There's a basic nothing match between Cena and Truth at a Saturday night's main event to further hammer home how cruel Cena has become, meanly thrashing this poor retarded fan of his into quick and easy mush. It's a cheap heat angle, a subplot in the core storyline of the Fallen Ace, trying to stay on top for his final run. Unfortunately, a real-life situation, a real-life storyline, reared its ugly head when the lame Triple H reminded us of his shocking, absolutely shocking prejudices.
Somebody like you doesn't get to be a world champion. With your nappy hair and your suckers.
Randomly sending R-Truth packing despite everyone liking him and him just being featured in a prominent angle. So much for loyalty paying off, eh? R-Truth, a sensible hand, a pro's pro who gave audiences a light laugh in the undercard and consistently got positive reactions for well over a decade, is sent home. He was just in a high-profile angle, he's already gone. For good, apparently, because he's old. Even though, to be fair, he's insanely well preserved for his age. The truth leaks out, and fans are not happy. John Cena, in between his upside-down world defenses against Orton and Punk, has one of his final PLE appearances utterly wasted on a pointless tag team match at Money in the Bank. Cody Rhodes is back in action. After taking his ball and going home following the shame of his WrestleMania 41 loss, he's got mid-card Jey Uso, the worst World Heavyweight Champion of all time, in tow, and they're colliding with Cena and Logan Paul. Great. It was clear that Paul, someone many viewers genuinely despise for reasons beyond his work in the squared circle, was here to try and throw some cheap heat on Cena, to try and help get the heel character more solidified in the eyes of a crowd that mostly just wanted to cheer Mr. Hustle Loyalty Respect one last time. Or was he? Just a few months into being a diabolical heel, Cena starts teasing tension with the brother of that tattooed imbecile Anthony Joshua handed Benoit-level brain damage to in what might have been a money laundering scheme. Seriously, how could they have both been paid so much for that? Oh no! Can John Cena and Logan Paul coexist? Team Twat can't get on, that's what we discover. Cena clearly wants this millennial, broccoli-headed forest dweller off of his damn lawn. Cena clearly, deep down, somewhere within, wants to turn back the clock and be good guy John again. The kind of guy who would call the Maverick gay, slap him silly when he went to retort, and then squash him into undercard purgatory with the 5 moves of doom on a B-grade pay-per-view, like the good old days. But not yet. First, Cody Rhodes must get his payback. He must regain the babyface top guy credibility he'd enjoyed in the year prior to Cena and Travis Scott making a fool out of him. Money in the Bank rolls in, and it's clear that this tag match is just here to promote the inevitable Cena vs. Rhodes rematch down the line. The action is all over the place, with Logan Paul often showing up his far more seasoned colleagues with his genuinely really impressive athleticism, and everyone else just kind of hobbling about. Jey Uso gets confused and might be drunk again, we don't know. Cena's heel stuff isn't landing, and Cody Rhodes is his usual, somewhat cringy self. The story here, though, kicks into high gear in the closing stretch as R-Truth makes a shock-horror return to attack his childhood hero who's younger than him, making way for Cody Rhodes to pin Cena with a crossroads. Cody Rhodes has never gotten the better of John Cena before this. Elimination Chamber had seen him humiliate the Roadster, and WrestleMania had seen him steal the guy's title. If anything, Rhodes finally getting the better of John Cena and solidifying himself as the man for now would have been a much more impactful moment had the American Nightmare not picked up a win here, and they'd saved him finally getting the better of Cena between the ropes exclusively for their singles rematch. A little bit of the toothpaste escaped the tube here, cheapening a later, much more important match. As for Truth, while WWE played this all up like it was some kind of Brian Pillman-style worked shoot angle, it was clear that fan backlash had gotten the promotion's PR team sweating bullets. Truth was an emergency rehire, a comical week or so after being an expendable firing. The storytelling, if you can even call it that, was quickly going off the rails, exposing an underbelly of disorganized chaos behind the scenes, something that had been simmering into public view ever since The Rock just sort of vanished in the middle of a heated angle on the road to WrestleMania. R-Truth, back by popular demand, conducts a self-humiliation ritual on Raw, shaving his head and rejecting the character that had been a fixture of WWE programming for well past 10 years. The WWE seemingly couldn't decide if he was Ron Killings now, or sticking with the R-Truth name, and Cena, in the midst of his long-awaited Punk feud, continued to butt heads with Truth, again jabronifying him in another throwaway singles match, this time on SmackDown. Truth, caught up in the vortex of mismanagement and back-office rivalries, had come, gone, and come again, lost his persona, and found little beyond an ill-fitting, sad man persona along the way, still firmly planted in the position of an undercard veteran allergic to winning. Cody Rhodes, meanwhile, went through an arc that, on paper, should have been quite dramatic. Much like Cena's feuds with Orton and Punk, there was a shadow of a good angle here, the skeleton of a story worth telling that was, ultimately, horribly mismanaged, badly letting down the talent involved in the process. Rhodes, still painfully far away from the gold, even with his tag win over Cena apparently, enters the King of the Ring where, in a cruel twist of fate, the Final Four are made up of him and his 3 dearest friends and allies in kayfabe, Randy Orton, Sami Zayn, and Jey Uso. Uso, much like Rhodes, is coming off of a world title loss, and is gunning to claw his way back to the title picture it took his whole career to get even remotely near to. And the American Nightmare, with no other options, puts the Yeet man's dreams down, head to head, soundly beating his pal and former tag partner to move forward. In the finals, after all of these years, Rhodes has to face his mentor, his former rival, his big bro, his main buddy on the show since he came back, Randy Orton. John Cena has already cheated to send Orton out of the title picture. Rhodes, we know, wouldn't dream of it. And the Viper is his white whale. The leader he never got the better of, who he was outdone by time and time again in his original WWE run. From getting slapped silly, to being Orton's lackey and legacy, to getting soundly trounced with famed super scammer Ted DiBiase the sequel at WrestleMania 26 by Orton, to having his undashing Cody gimmick get literally shattered by the Legend Killer. And of course having his career briefly ended after losing a career match against Orton in 2013. Rhodes never escaped the shadow of the man who hears a whole lot of voices in his head. The Herschel Walker of wrestling, if you will. Good guy, chilled out, 40-something Orton begins to find temptation once again. Will he succumb to his dark passenger to send Rhodes to the hospital and get his inevitable, impossible rematch? The King of the Ring bout between these two is very neatly worked and technically sound, as one would expect from two in-ring talents of their caliber. Orton teases a psychotic break. Rhodes soldiers on against the adversity of a wiser foe who knows his every move. The story is simple but somewhat truncated by both men being babyfaces, with a babyface Rhodes versus heel Orton angle continuing to be a painfully obvious story WWE, for some reason, refused to run. In the closing stretch, Rhodes powers up, finally vanquishing his mentor with the crossroads for the 1-2-3. It's a dramatic moment, and an important one for Rhodes as a character, but again, the dramatic value is just not there the way it should be. Rhodes has had to plow through the men he genuinely respects and cares about on the roster to get back to the level he fell from at WrestleMania. He already lost longtime ally Kevin Owens in 2024 as well, in a heated blood feud. The tension here should be higher, the gravity heavier than it is, especially with what an overly emotional character the former Stardust normally is these days. Regardless, finally, the bout that has been circling the WWE like a vulture on a hot summer's day ever since WrestleMania 41 wrapped is now on the way. John Cena versus Cody Rhodes, Part 2. Will Cena finally terminate Rhodes' face of the company prospects for good? Or will Rhodes finally knock some sense into Cena and take back the prize he was robbed of? Well, kind of neither, actually. Travis Scott, who'd been rumoured for an in-ring debut as a part of his oddball appearances at Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania, ducks out for good. The Rock, meanwhile, somehow believes he's destined to flop biopic of Mark Kerr will send him into the upper echelon of awards show nonsense in Hollywood. And just still hasn't been seen since Cena actually moved the back portion of his foot 180 degrees in February. Obviously, there's more to The Rock's disappearance in reality, including some purported creative issues with Triple Nose and Cody Rhodes not wanting to turn heel, but who cares? That's not what this video's about. The point is, finally, WWE were about to acknowledge in kayfabe what everyone had been confused by in reality. What was the point of Cena's heel turn if the guys he switched to villainy with were never coming back or helping to flesh out the story? Cena initially hits us with some actually funny heel work for a change. Anyone who has watched this guy as an actor in recent years knows he's a natural at goofy humor and comedic characterizations. A funnier heel shtick with more personality and wit likely would have suited his often elite-level promo skills and sensibilities far more than the sad, angry man-child he was frequently portrayed as during this run. Cena reveals that SummerSlam just isn't an ideal show for him. He's busy. He's got bigger stuff to do with his life now than take flat-back bumps on plywood every night. The never-seen 17 tries to reason with Rhodes and play nice, explaining that SummerSlam's just not a good fit for him, and Rhodes, actually showing some backbone and venom over the waterworks he often drops into everything, snaps and beats Cena up until the contract is finally signed. It's the kind of intensity this angle, marred by endless talking and unexpected celebrity involvement, desperately needed. It's on. The story now seems clear. Rhodes is going to humble evil Cena and teach him a lesson in the ring. Makes sense. Might as well see this heel story play out properly. But no! Oh no. That would make too much sense. Right before SummerSlam, this whole story, this whole retirement tour again comes crashing down. John Cena, heel Cena, just admits being a heel hasn't worked. He acknowledges that this wasn't the originally planned angle with him, and that The Rock and Travis Scott ditching him threw a big creative spanner into the works. Basically, we just got a shoot interview on live television in the middle of what's meant to be the biggest feud in the world's biggest wrestling promotion. In the most painfully basic way of restoring his babyface persona, John Cena just politely admits he was wrong and promises Cody Rhodes a fair fight at SummerSlam. That's it. From February to August, in the twilight year of his obviously Hall of Fame-worthy career, one of the biggest stars of the 21st century sullied his 21-year standing as a major babyface act for a nothing heel run. Sabotaged by backstage politics, and then just acknowledged exactly that on the way back to being a now tainted face act. Yeah, you know what, guys, I thought this heel turn would be something more. That's right. It's Dwayne and Travis's fault, really. They abandoned me. So sorry about that, Cody, buddy. I'm gonna be a nice guy again. May the best man win here. Ha ha, yeah, thanks, buddy, yeah. There was a time where pivoting an angle actually involved moving it creatively, not just shattering kayfabe by politely acknowledging it's not working and it's time to go back to formula.
Back to formula.
Here, though, Rhodes and Cena just agreed to reboot their whole story because Dwayne Johnson took his scut and went home. The match itself is excellent, a far cry from the plodding mess at WrestleMania, with both men showing a lot of fire and intensity over the course of a 37-minute war. The story here was simple, much simpler in fact than their WrestleMania misfire, with old dog Cena now fighting hard and properly once more. Leaving the cheating BS that never suited him anyway behind, while Rhodes, with a point to prove, powers through Cena's onslaught in his obsessive quest to finally overcome the previous main event generation's biggest star. The moment where they emerge from the Cody Vator with Cena holding Rhodes over his shoulders is one of those visuals you just know will get replayed and referenced for years to come. The match is excellent, and the best part of this whole retirement tour. Rhodes finally gets his win over the Attitude Adjuster, and the pair's show of post-match respect, while a bit forced after the ridiculousness of the feud, feels like a passing of the torch, a stample of approval from one corporate favourite babyface to another. This is the true ending of the John Cena retirement tour. The whole story revolved around his need to land that 17th world title win. If we were to be reasonable, as weakly executed as it all was, there was a story here of an aged legend so desperate for his last moment in the sun that he became everything he hated in order to get it. Here, losing fairly and respecting his foes, showing humility, Cena is redeemed, kind of. The quest to be on top, to spite the fans and promotion that made him who he is over, and he sees the error of his ways in the twilight months of the twilight year of his career. Everything that follows this match is just footnotes and epilogues, a bunch of extra ending scenes, like Return of the King in the last half hour, as Cena meanders through greatest hits collections and humiliation rituals. On one hand, he has a surprisingly fun match with Logan Paul, and a low on psychology, high on nostalgia back catalogue of moments from yesteryear finale with AJ Styles. On the other hand, he gets utterly demolished by Brock Lesnar. In the good old days of the Ruthless Aggression era, Cena was initially under the yoke of Lesnar's reign at the top of SmackDown. Rapper Cena, while popular, was nowhere near the level Lesnar was presented at. In 2004, however, right as Cena was slowly being primed for a future top babyface spot. Lesnar had had enough. Never a fan of the medium growing up. The Beast lacked the obsessive, die-hard fan enthusiasm often required to commit to such a punishing, hard-grafting lifestyle. With his athlete's biological clock ticking, the big man decided it was now or never to try something else, like, say, the brain-damaging prestige of the NFL, and he opted to abandon the company right after signing a huge, multi-year new contract with them. With Lesnar on the way out, a huge space up top for a promising young star like Cena was just waiting to be filled. Fast forward to the early 2010s, and John Cena was firmly the face of the company while Lesnar had cleared off for a doomed attempt at a run in the Minnesota Vikings. A cumbersome top run in an ailing New Japan, horribly hampered by pay issues and the general senile insanity of 21st century Antonio Inoki, and a high-profile but brief run in the Sun in the UFC. When Lesnar, now too obliterated in the intestinal health department to safely commit to more fighting, returned to the WWE, the first feud to run was obvious. Could John Cena overcome the Beast? Would he even be where he is right now? If Lesnar hadn't abandoned ship on a crazed football whim all those years ago. Well, despite being in a depression arc, and eating an utterly spasticated loss to the future cross-dressing dancer turned NXT trainer Lord Tensai, the John Cena vs. Brock Lesnar feud back then revolved around the future Ricky Stenicki star, proving he was on Lesnar's level. Despite enduring a bloody beating at Extreme Rules 2012, Cena makes a Superman comeback to send Lesnar packing in his first WWE match in over 8 years. 2 years later, with Lesnar now at least somewhat forgiven for ditching the promotion in 2004 and enjoying a mega push now as the breaker of The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak, this whole idea was revisited. This time with Lesnar completely obliterating Cena in an extended squash at SummerSlam 2014. While it would have been easy enough to end the angle here with the implication that Lesnar always was superior to Cena, the next month saw Mr. Rise Above Hate hand the Beast a huge beating of his own before Zest Rollins, in a pre-fruity era, as Triple H's diabolical protege, ruined everything. So fast forward to 2025, and after a period of hibernation, following the unfortunate reveal he enjoys watching Vince McMahon's middle-aged mistresses take a piss, allegedly, Lesnar, looking like the world's most jacked, old-town country singer, is back. And before Cena leaves, finally, it appears we might get a final chapter to close these two sporadic but generational rivalry out properly. Lesnar sullies John Cena's SummerSlam return to babyface glory by handing him a surprise beating, something he also did at SummerSlam 2021, because Triple knows, and his trusty writer's pal, a certain Mr. GPT, do not believe in that whole originality thing you might have heard of. WrestlePalooza 25, Cena vs. Lesnar, one last time. Lesnar's a bit of a disgrace these days. Not that many people even care about some eyebrow-raising accusations, of course. And Cena is on the way out. Neither guy winning is all that ideal, but given Lesnar's return is indefinite, he's got more mileage for creative to work with. Instead of a competitive match, however, a deep in his TRT phase Lesnar punks out Big Match John with extreme prejudice, dismantling and squashing his old OVW peer in rapid, jabronifying fashion. John Cena has lost the war. He is the inferior of the Beast, and with no rematch on the cards, there is no comeback. The company man, the workhorse champion, who proudly fronted the promotion for a decade plus, is ultimately not quite up to scratch, with the disloyal, antisocial menace he largely replaced in the top spot. There was no real rhyme or reason for Lesnar and his tear-away Chippendales genes going after Cena. Like a big bully, he just picked a fight with someone smaller than him for no good reason, and again, like a big bully, he didn't stop until he'd squashed his chosen victim into dust. Cena, once the hero who rose above insurmountable odds in almost every feud he stepped into, had become a bona fide victim with no hope of a comeback or payback on his sadistic oppressor. So we've had John Cena descend below hate, we've had him drop the hustle, be disloyal, and be supremely disrespectful, and now we've had a stamp of inferiority placed on his dynamic with one of his most important, domineering career rivals. With all of these character-crushing setbacks, WWE needed to throw the guy a bone before Cena fans really started to come unglued at the bizarre treatment of their aging hero. Enter one of the painfully few accolades to have escaped him during his illustrious career. The Intercontinental Championship. Dirty Dominepo Mysterio enjoyed a chokehold on the Intercontinental belt for most of 2025. A middling talent, greatly bolstered into the limelight at an initially green point in his career thanks to his legendary father. Dirty Dom has benefited enormously from huge attempts in booking to give him a colourful character and disguise his flaws, from betraying his old man to join the Judgment Day to being an inexplicable ladies' man. It's clear someone in head office is determined for this guy to be the next big thing, but strip away the gimmickry and the smoke and mirrors protection, and you've got a 20-something teenager in a silly outfit cutting hit-and-miss promos that can border on Sammy Guevara levels of whiny cringe on a bad day, working through tidy but formulaic bouts, and hamming up the cowardly heel antics like a late noughties Miz, but less natural, more forced. Look at what a heel I am, rather than actually just being one. Basically, despite the WWE's best efforts, Old Dom is still relatively expendable between the ropes. And a surprise title loss on Raw to Old Man Cena was more than permissible. Far from a mid-card demotion, as much as it might have looked like that following his world title loss and Lesnar squash, Cena's Intercontinental title win allowed him to enter the hallowed halls of the WWE Grand Slam champion. It was a fun moment near the end, as the veteran babyface accomplishes something new at the expense of a despicable middling heel. But all good things must come to an end. In his final PLE match, Intercontinental Champion John Cena put the belt up for grabs against former champ Dominepo in what can only be described as a humiliation ritual for Big Match John. As if having to lose to Rey Mysterio's trust fund spawn in his final ever PLE in-ring appearance wasn't enough, Cena also had to sell getting beaten up by women. Now look, I'm sure there are some out there who watch these girl boss action flicks where dainty actresses are allowed to pretend they could beat up a bunch of no-good men's, in poorly choreographed scenes where every baddie stands in a queue to get beaten up one at a time. And these people watching that thing, women's be strongs, and ain't no man can handle them, Well, it's time to wake up, Mark. This is the real world. All you tomato cans who seriously thought Ronda Rousey could whoop Floyd Mayweather back in the day need an ugly dose of what we call reality. Men and women are physically different, built for different tasks, sporting their very own, very different strengths and weaknesses. And hey, yes, there are exceptions to this rule. There are some freakishly strong women out there. Just like Ben Shapiro reminds us every day, there are some frail, zero-muscle, so-called men out there who could get chinned by a light breeze if they weren't careful. The fact is, though, 9 times out of 10, men are going to be physically bigger and stronger than women, and John Cena, even now, well past his prime and having slimmed considerably down from his Super Cena heyday, is still a jacked unit who makes average people look tiny and frail in comparison. And yet, we see him eating a move from Roxanne Perez, a woman who blatantly gets ID'd at the club after the show, who is yet to see the upper side of 5 feet in life. We see John Cena selling for what can only be described as a high school girl. Oh, and Raquel Tall Lady, less ridiculous obviously, but still silly, also beating the man who once threw the great Khali off a crane. Beating this guy up, smacking him silly, so their man, this harem of undercard women for Dominepo Mysterio, Dominipo now can beat a huge name he barely has any business being in the ring with to begin with. The match is like the intergender Western equivalent of a New Japan House of Torture special. Switching out paunchy evil for stringy dumb. Endless cringy shenanigans, a referee who is clearly retarded, a truncated pace from said shenanigans, with the constant run-ins as the doomed, friendless face desperately tries to fight the numbers game. And ending, of course, on said face being a complete idiot. Liv Morgan returns, yay, and slaps Mysterio for potentially cheating on her with the maybe underaged Perez, fair enough. But so clearly a swerve, bro. John Cena smiles and has a good time in the heat of a dangerous title defense against a whole gang of cheaters, and lets his vasectomied nether regions do the thinking for him when Morgan swoops in for an inexplicable hug. Hey look, I'd enjoy a surprise hug from Liv Morgan as much as the next guy, but in kayfabe, how could a seasoned main event veteran like John Cena not smell a simple ruse from a mile away? We saw him lose his heart and soul with the heel turn. We've now seen him lose his brain and wits since returning to the light. Morgan hits him right in his already sterilized crown jewels. So not much additional damage done, I guess. Setting up the utter disgrace of an overpushed Nepo jobber netting a tainted win over the face of the WWE's unfortunate move into PG living. Punked out and jabronified by a bunch of undersized mid-carders and 3 women's performers. This was John Cena's farewell to PLE wrestling. Looking at the lights as 2 wannabes celebrated over his freshly desecrated corpse. Beating John Cena really just meant nothing anymore. It hadn't for years, of course, but in his retirement run, now the record holder for world titles, it was perplexing just how meaningless and deflating this had all become. And needless to say, the tournament to decide who got to hand John Cena his final job did not exactly set the world on fire. Right off the bat, top dogs of the future like Brum Breakker, Obafemi, and Trick Williams were nowhere to be seen. Their spots were given away to has-been cuckolds like Rusev, or mid-card cringe merchants like Jey Uso. It quickly became clear that Gunther, the man who'd already played a key part in ensuring Goldberg's farewell was a depressing bout involving putting an old man out to pasture, was gearing up to hand out the old yeller treatment once again. Ploughing through a middling, cumbersome tournament, Gunther met LA Knight in the finals. LA Knight, not a work-rate king by any stretch, but a charismatic, witty talker and crowd worker who actually looks and moves and presents himself like a star. A man who famously teamed up with Cena back in 2023, an angle that could have easily been revisited with interest during Cena's heel turn, or even here, but no. No. Knight, like Dolph Ziggler before him, or Hiroki Goto any time before New Beginning 2025, crumbles at the last hurdle. A lovable choke artist at best. He falls to Gunther, setting up a match that was widely known on the dirt sheets several months before even a tournament was even announced. Gunther, an old-fashioned technical heel in a world of sput monkeys and wannabe celebrities, vows he will do the unthinkable. He will make John Cena tap out. Oh no. And while rapper Cena was pushed to quitting on a few occasions, it was an essential part of the Super Cena character to never give up. The main reason why the I Quit match was his jam. Gunther is the anti-Cena in many ways, a grounded, miserable, traditional professional wrestler devoid of any real sports entertainment stylings or colour, grimly, aggressively wearing opponents down in his desperate bid to establish himself as the top of the pops in the business. There is no moral compass beyond a healthy respect for the ring, no sense of honor beyond the brutality of competition, and no connection with the fans or spirit of the promotion whatsoever. Gunther is a wrestling man of science, unfeeling and cold, and one horribly let down by the fact that there are so few credible, larger-than-life babyfaces for him to ground and pick on. The match itself, and this is the real kicker, the grimmest of all moments in this hodgepodge of scattershot booking that was John Cena's final year in the squared circle. The match itself ends on Cena going the way of Hemingway. You know, figuratively speaking. Fighting hard, Cena hits the loose-physiqued, no knee pads blast from the past, this Austrian Terry Gordy between the ropes, with everything. The AA again, more AAs, he's shoulder tackle. This guy's moves are very limited. He slaps on his appalling STF where he never ever applies any convincing pressure on his opponent. STF, really flashing my door card here, stands for step over toe hold face lock. Cena does the S&T, but then just forgets to actually slap on a proper face lock at the last hurdle. None of it is enough. Old man Cena is outmatched by his younger but still pretty much middle-aged foe, worn down by stiff chops and slams, overpowered. Ultimately, trapped in Gunther's dreaded sleepy time sleeper hold, Cena smiles, relieved that it's all coming to an end. And gives up. Mr. Never Give Up does exactly that, blissfully tapping out, doing himself in the final night of his career. What a depressing ending. Points have been made about the symbolism of Cena finally letting go, that there's a beauty in his quitting. The whole, he no longer needs to be Super Cena, he can pack it in and be free, move on and do something else with his remaining years. Right, so not only does that completely go against his character, but Cena finding peace and smiling as he quits and gives up and fails, well, this defeats the whole reason he was a heroic character for younger viewers in the first place. John Cena was booked here to blissfully walk into the wrestling equivalent of self-aside between the ropes. Instead of rising above Gunther's hate, he willingly drowned in it, and was happy now because he'll never have to do it again. Post-match, they reenact that time Cena and Batista handed Hulk Hogan their world titles to pose with. Only then, Hogan, while well past his prime, was having fun and allowed to remain comfortable, as a protected nostalgia act, with Cena and Batista, two new, bona fide leading men in professional wrestling at the time, having some fun with a prior generation titan. Here, Cena is greeted by Old Man Punk and Cody Rhodes, both of whom are ready to cry harder than a Kim Jong-il mourner. Ensuring this is as solemn and defeatist a moment as possible as Cena poses with two belts from two men, one of whom is very much his generation, who actually represent and are synonymous with the rise of an alternative product to the WWE that has fallen painfully by the wayside in recent years. John Cena's retirement tour, despite handing him a lovely paycheck, one final WrestleMania main event, a record-setting world title reign, and a long-awaited Grand Slam win, will largely come to define Cena's legacy negatively in the years to come. Every aspect of the babyface persona so preciously protected and pushed by Vince McMahon for years was deconstructed and dismantled. Cena was a bad man, a hater, a hypocrite, a quitter. Someone who couldn't overcome the odds, who could indeed give up, who could give in to his darker urges after all. A total character assassination without even the decency to be well written for the sake of coherency and entertainment quality. And the real question becomes, was this just disappointing booking that didn't pan out? Or was this intentional? Over the years, we've seen countless fans of all manner of franchises cry into their soda and popcorn as their beloved fictional heroes of yesteryear are humiliated and embarrassed in glum closing chapters. Luke Skywalker, sad old hermit, almost murdered his nephew, just sort of willingly perishes to appear as a Force ghost and not really do much of interest. All of his victories in the beloved old trilogy meant nothing. Indiana Jones, sad old fuddy-duddy, lost his son that's clearly not actually his if you just take one look at them, to the Vietnam War. Gets picked on and emasculated by Fleabag, considers leaving his own timeline permanently. A joke, all round. Neo, the One, who, despite being blinded in a horrible electrical cable-related incident, manages to save both realities and secure a peaceful truce between the humans and the machines, ensuring Zion would be safe, and sadly dies in the process. Well, actually, the machines brought him back, Zion got crushed, nothing he did meant anything, and also he's an idiot. Trinity's more of the one now or something, because Larry Wachowski relates to her more now for, reasons. Those are just a few examples, by the way. There are obviously loads. People whinge about them all the time. But now, professional wrestling has one. John Cena, a hero to a whole generation of millennial viewers, closes out his career on a tainted heel run and a few months of random bouts and defeats. And this coming after several years of just showing up to lose in random singles bouts, sometimes to mid-card acts with questionable ceilings at best. The legend of the John Cena persona was soundly extinguished in 2025. Now, before this video wraps up, it's worth mentioning the man himself has weighed in on his retirement run in recent time. You see, nowadays wrestlers all sit around and have a good laugh in public about the utter fakery of their fake work in a fake industry all the time. Just in case you weren't sure, Mark, this is all fake, and they're here to remind you of that every time you tune in. Cena shed some light on the logic of his final year's booking during an appearance on Cody Rhodes' So What Do You Guys Wanna Talk About podcast, where the current WWE champion has out-of-character interviews with his peers to ensure kayfabe is buried deeper than Benoit, Owen Hart, or Bruiser Brody. Cena explained that the whole story was that of a man grappling with his own mortality, doing everything in his power to rage against the dying of the light before finally finding peace and acceptance with it, and the end of his run on top. And hey, look, on paper, that sounds like it could be interesting, but ultimately, considering the here, there, and everywhere nature of the actual product, this rhetoric sounds more like damage control than authentic explanation. Ultimately, this final year, even with the accolades and the mainstream attention, was a hatchet job on everything John Cena as a character represented in professional wrestling. An insult to his fans, and too much of a creative mess to be satisfying for his haters either. Simply a stain on one of the WWE's most recognizable stars in a promotion slowly going off the rails creatively, on account of a soulless hack team of rerun merchants and moment chasers in the alleged writer's room.